My name is Markus Möller. I'm from Germany. I work there for Avanade. I have a Twitter account as well, for sure, and a personal blog where I write about things, for instance, about the topic also that I'm talking about right now. And this is about provisioning with Azure Automation. So I think Azure Automation is quite an old service from Azure, but it's not that popular in use, I think, around SharePoint site provisioning as well as Teams provisioning. I haven't read so much about it, but I'm using it for quite a while now in customer scenarios and so on. So just give me some quick basics why you should also think about using it. So the setup I will show you in a minute is quite simple, and I think a bit simpler than other comparing technologies. For instance, when you have to set up an Azure function or the Azure web app also, takes a bit longer, I guess. PnP PowerShell, I think, is one of the best tools to work with SharePoint, especially with SharePoint provisioning. You have to need less lines of code for achieving results here. The thing is, in the demo, I will show you that you can use the same code base, meaning Azure Runbooks, for administrative reasons as well as to connect them to your provisioning engine. This can be a lightweight approach with really less lines of code. I'll show you in the demo, but you can also, of course, scale this up to high-end solutions. And unfortunately, for user requests or something like that, of course, you would need a specific UI and connect this to your runbooks. Yeah, this is not my topic today, but I show you only the administrative setup. So the first thing what we need is we need an automation account in Azure. We have some ones here, and for today we will use that one. In that kind of an automation account, we have of course, our runbooks. We'll come there to a minute. And we also have some configuration assets, for instance, like the PowerShell modules, where you explicitly, for instance, have to upload your SharePoint PnP PowerShell module, which is not out of the box available. You can have your credentials here. You have some variables. Also have certificates. I use this right now for the modern authentication way. We'll show in the code in a minute. And that's all. So now come to our runbooks. The runbooks indeed are here in my case nothing else than PowerShell scripts. We have one parent runbook here, which I show you next, and we have some child runbooks which we will call one by one. So first we will use the create team 2 today, because these are optional ones. In my blog you can see the difference here, but I'll tell you in a minute. So we will first create a team in this case. We will then go to provision stuff with the provisioning templates, and finally we do some further steps which we cannot achieve with provisioning templates right now. This is roughly the pattern I often use to provision that. So the first thing is our parent runbook. We, of course, need some parameters here, such as the desired alias, a display name, a description, or an owner. We get some, here we can, for instance, get our credentials from the asset store. So when we quickly, for instance, would remove this, we can also get this from here directly and add this to the canvas once again. Getting some, I use this, it's a bit old school maybe, but I use an XML parameter for an XML string for several parameters in one variable. And then here we go and we'll call our first sub runbook and execute this. Once we have this, we will retrieve our team, which we got, and then next with this one, we will check if our site is ready. Yeah, this is a typical pattern also in a while string that we check for several times if everything is ready so far during provisioning, because the speed of Office 365, of course, might differ from day to day. And So this is a cool pattern. We will check this for several times now since the site is ready. And then we can go on with our second runbook and finally our third one. We can test this now. I'll show you in a minute the rest of the time, but we can already kick this off. I did this in preparation. We will just change some parameters here. So we have our team and desired alias, we have our display name, our description, and also an owner. And kick this off. And now it will run. Still in the queue, but shouldn't take long. Now it's already running. You don't have a live output here. This was in the past, it was working like that, but since a while it's not available anymore. But in case you need it in this test pane, you can still use refresh job screen. And here you see that we are already on the way. So what we can see right now, we already connected to our tenant. We created a new team with the desired display name and alias. The team got created so far, but it's not ready yet because under the hood still things are going on. Okay, this takes some time. In the meantime, we can check the runbook, which is currently on its way, and this is the creation of team. And here we see already what we saw in the output, that we connected first against the Microsoft Graph with an app ID, app secret, and our tenant, which we got from the variable store. Then we create our header. And what we do in this case, and this is my create team runbook 2, this is the currently productive approach to create teams. We first will create a group with our, or we first will check if the alias is available, and then we are going to create a group. Here we build our request for that. And then finally, we kick that off. And from that group, we afterwards create a team request to enhance this group to a team. This is quite that scenario which you might have already seen, for instance, in a video Paolo Pialozzi was showing a couple of weeks ago. I increased this only with desired alias and also adding owners, because I think creating groups without owners is not the best practice. So this was the first runbook. We can check, by the way, back to our test scenario, which already is gone through. So let's jump up here. So we saw that our team did not get ready so far, but with one retry, it got ready. And then here already our provisioning runbook starts. This maybe we first have a look into the code here. The first thing we will do, we defined a function here to download the PNP template, because the PNP template, you know, when you run your PowerShell, usually you use from your file system. In that case, running in an Azure automation account, we will download this from Azure Blob Storage. Yeah, so I can show you in a minute where you find it. For the Blob Storage, we need our credentials. And also for connecting to SharePoint, this is our credentials we created. This is a bit more complex here, but I love to work with the modern authentication. Finally, I will tell you why. This all stuff you could also replace here, what I'm doing here in these lines of code, with just a simple get credential. But modern authentication with an app registration is much better. Here we connect then against SharePoint. And then here we have our template, which we download. We saw the function above. And finally, we only apply this against the site. So how does it look like in an Azure storage? Here's our template. From there it's downloaded. The final thing is doing some further steps. I can quickly go through that, which is currently not possible with PNP provisioning. We just decided to create another team tab. And therefore, in the final runbook, once again, to make sure we have it, we connect against Microsoft Graph. We create another REST request header. We create a request URL, a tab request where we finally, with the URL here, we create a URL against a list, I'll show you in a minute, which we created with PnP provisioning with our template. Yeah. And the final result in our test is that everything went fine. Here we have the download of our XML template, which was done to the local running environment of the automation account. And then finally here the provisioning is done. This was the second runbook, and here already starts the third runbook, where we are adding the tab against our team. And then finally, when we switch against our team, we have team number 15 created. This is standard, but this employees list, which we show up here, was created by PnP provisioning inside the team site. And finally, show you the template that I used for that. So I'm creating here some fields, creating a content type, creating a list instance, and finally creating lots of data rows for a reference list first. And here are all our employees, which we just show. That was my little demo. Finally, some lessons learned from this thing. When I have to create a site, a team, whatever, I use the pattern that first I try to solve my requirements with a provisioning template. If this doesn't work, then I try to use PnP PowerShell before or after provisioning. Finally, you saw this in that case because does not work creating the tabs so far. I use REST methods, for instance, against Graph or SharePoint or whatever. You can also try to use theater methods inside PowerShell. And what you can finally do, if nothing helps, I also did this in seldom cases, is writing your own PowerShell commandlets. We also made migrations with that approach. In that case, we do it a bit different. Don't handle one site in all steps, so meaning creation, provisioning, doing further steps. No, then we do, to speed up a bit, we would first create maybe, for instance, the 100 sites, then go to all 100 sites and provision them, and then finally do the additional steps to all 100 sites afterwards. And yeah, finally, the thing is, when it comes to authentication, what I found out is when you work with the modern app authentication, you solve lots of problems on top, such as multilingual bugs because you don't have a user service account which might not fit the current language, and then you get issues with PnP provisioning. You also don't have to handle, even when you update sites, you can also use this for administrative tasks, you don't have to handle getting site collection admin access once again and remove it afterwards if you want to do this. No, you always have this access when you have the right app registration and so on. Yeah, that's from my side. Thanks so much for listening.
Thanks, Markus. Really great demo, and actually that's a really great explanation how you are using those different pieces and bits and pieces on the UI. So thank you for clarifying. And the learnings are always good. Learnings are really good on the demos as well because they help other people understand what you've gone through, and then you're sharing your the learning so they don't have to bang their head against the wall, so to say. So thank you for that.